could provide a brief overview.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Samuel Edwards, and I'm a public defender here in Brevard County. I've been working for the PD's office for about the past 10 years. I came to Brevard County in 2004. Originally, when I came here, I worked for the PD's office for about a year, and then I went into private practice. Initially, when I started private practice, I worked with two local criminal defense attorneys, Reed Carey and Brad Sowers. I went from associate with them to a partnership with them to being on my own. I don't know the exact date that I actually started my own practice, but it was probably around 2007, 2008. Shortly after starting private practice, or about the time I started private practice, I became married. We had a child. Once we had the child, I decided I wanted to go back to government work for the security and so forth and so on. So I went back to the PD's office in 2013. I do have some private experience that is before 2004 with healthcare firms, things of that nature. I defended some doctors before the Agency for Healthcare Administration. So I do have a little bit of the more fancy, for lack of a better word, civil attorney work, and but that was more or less the years when I just got out of law school. So I do have some experience with some administrative review boards, things of that nature. Since being with the Public Defender's Office and both being in private practice, I've tried, I believe my count is 59 cases to verdict. I'm counting jury trials only. I'm not counting any non-juries. I've certainly had many non-juries as well, particularly in juvenile law. That's about it.
Right. Mr. Robinson.
Good morning, Mr. Woods. How
Hey,
you doing?
Mr. Robinson, good, thank you.
So I had an opportunity to vet you, and you know, I'll be frank, I really didn't learn much I didn't already know. I mean, everybody thinks you have the demeanor and the temperament.
Appreciate it.
You know, make a great judge. You kind of have that hit.
Thanks, Jeff.
The questions, I mean, you've run a law practice, but the question, the concerns are, what about those areas of law outside of criminal nature? So Judge Mall's spot was a family law spot. Chances are, I mean, as we know, you've done obviously criminal, you've done juvenile, but you could be put in a dependency spot, you could be put in a probate spot, you could be put in a civil spot. What's your plan to get spun up on these different facets of law with different rules, different statutes?
Well, I think, and you're right, certainly with regard to deficiencies, if you look at those, the family law arena, probate arena, particularly any civil arena other than criminal, would be something that I would have to get up to speed on, possibly more quickly than some of my peers that are in this position I'm in today. I would say that what I would do is I would go towards one or two mentors. I have some judges that, for lack of a better word, I've had on my cell phone. I could always text them. I don't want to name names, but I feel as if if I can have an effective mentor in that environment. I mean, should I get this position and should I be placed directly into family court? I would have to get up to speed very quickly, and I think that with my relationship with those judges that have done it, whether it be me just going to dinner with them every night and barging through their door and just pounding them with questions, what do I do here, what do I do there, or I have this going on, what's within the ethical guidelines, asking them how to be adept and get up to speed. I think that's where I would go. I would ask some judges that have mentored me in the past. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Valley.
Good morning.
I saw in your application that you had run for office at one point.
Did.
And there's a gap between then and now, I think quite a number of years.
Sure.
Why haven't you run again, or why haven't you come or submitted an application to go through the appointment process in that many time span?
That's a great question, and I don't have a specific answer for that, other than when I ran my campaign in 2012, we had not had our baby yet. I do plan to run again, should I not be elected. I heard the question on Ms. Castaldi or Judge Castaldi. I do plan to run again at some point, possibly even next year. But the gap, I really don't have an explanation other than the fact that, we had our trial, and then I kind of got in the group with government work, and it's just, putting myself out there as far as the finances, the money that it takes to go forward, the time that it takes to go forward, circuit court, when you're running for circuit court, the things that you have to do. I mean, you have to familiarize yourself with other counties. We have Seminole County. Mr. Dowdy is about the only person I know in Seminole County. So, I would have to start going into court or, some sort of, commission meetings or something, young lawyers meetings, bar association meetings. There are all these things that you need to do to get up to speed to run a circuit court campaign. County court campaign, I come real close. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot here, but I subscribe to the theory that generally speaking, I don't really ever plan on running against a city judge. And so as far as county court seats are concerned, there really have been few and far between since 2012. I'm sure there's been some, but like with the people that were running, there were people that I respected and I didn't necessarily want to run against them, and so forth and so on. I do plan on running again, but the timing just was never there.
Mr. Gerber.
Sounds like you like your job and you're good at it. Why are you interested in changing?
Short answer is money. I want to, I don't want to hide behind some sort of answer where I say to you, in my DNA, I feel as if I'm meant to be a judge. I do feel that way. I grew up, in a law enforcement family. I think I put in my application, my grandfather was a sheriff of the county I'm from. We have, some of my family members have military background. My family members, I'm the black sheep of the family. They're all genuine good people. And, I feel as if I would be a good judge. But, as you get older in your years, I've got a daughter again, I put her in Holy Trinity next year. It's a money situation. So, I know that's a horrible answer, but I want to be transparent with you and say that that's a big part of it. There's certainly way more than that. Certainly way more.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine.
Good morning, Mr. Edwards.
Hey, good
Thank
morning.
you for taking the time to apply.
Sure.
As a circuit court judge, there's wide varieties of areas that you may get assigned to. We've got some questions about that. I think one of the important traits of the judge is, attention to detail. Small things can have big consequences. As I was reviewing your application, I noticed there were multiple deficiencies in the application, just small attention to detail things that were incomplete, like there's no writing samples at all, things like that. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity just to address some of those issues.
Sure.
Like for instance, another example is you referenced numerous bench trials, but there's nothing on the application about that.
So, there's no excuse. I can tell you that what troubled me the most when I was thinking about my application, I know that I wrote Judge Crawford's name down in longhand, and over the past 2 days, I have been really beating myself up over, well, why didn't you just, draft another, piece of paper off, the copier instead of writing it down in longhand. The non-jury trials, to be honest with you, but this is not an excuse, but I'm carrying a 180 client docket right now, and I'm trying to be a public defender. I'm trying to effectively inform my clients and do my job, but at the same time, I'm trying to fill out this application. There's really no excuse for it. I should have been more detailed with it, spent more time with it. What I had to do is I had to essentially sporadically, fill this application out, either while I was at my desk or either at home. And throughout that time, I did miss some things. I knew like memberships, like I'm a member of the Federalist Society. I didn't put that in there. There's probably some other things that
And if I may, he did submit a writing sample. If that wasn't circulated, I can do that.
I did. It's not what I would have wanted to submit because it's older. Thank you, Mr. Pickett, but I did submit a writing sample.
So along the lines of the questions about the election, you ran in 2012.
Yes, sir.
And it was Steve Coons and Kurt Jacobus.
Right.
And you talked about the financial aspect and looking at the kind of campaign expenditures. I mean, Judge Coon spent or raised $137,000 and a county raise. You're looking at potentially a circuit race. If appointed, you'd have to defend your seat, or if you run for an open seat, you're looking at raising a significant amount of money. What would be your plan for that?
So as one of the judges that's my mentor has so vehemently beat over my head, I've got to learn how to ask for money. And I did a really poor job of doing that when I ran a campaign. I don't know what it was, but going up and shaking somebody's hand and saying, hey, can you donate towards my campaign? It was something that I never could be comfortable with. So I'll have to get over that and be brief.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Barrett.
Morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
So you have a ton of experience in a ton of different courtrooms, and you've seen things go well and things go not well. Can you share with us something that you would like to emulate if you were the judge in the courtroom, and something that you would like to avoid?
It's good to meet you, by the way. So when you say emulate, you mean when I things I can learn from as far as?
Like something you've seen certain judges do that you would do the same.
Listen. Absolutely. Listen. Look, you can have a judge that is a cowboy and says the wrong things, but if you listen and you know how to talk to people right, whether it be the attorneys that are in the room, if it's a criminal case, the defendants that are in the room, I don't know about civil case, but civil case, the litigants that are in the room, but if you can listen and effectively talk to people, and that's a certain skill that I don't know whether it's learned or it's innate. If you can do that, you can just about get away with anything, so to speak.
2 ears, 1 mouth.
Exactly. Never listen yourself into trouble. I think that was Judge Jacobus's quote on his computer.
And how about something bad that you've seen a judge or judges do, and you want to make sure you didn't do it that way?
So, I had a particularly bad experience when I did a death penalty sentencing trial with the court in that, how do I put this? It was a long sentencing phase. It was 2 weeks. And the jury ultimately did not recommend death. But when the verdict came across, it came across late. She waited until the verdict. We waited. It was about 8 o'clock. When the verdict came across, the family got out of hand. The family of the deceased, in that they essentially started speaking out loud, yelling, with their this grown up folks, what happened, and it was allowed to carry on, to an extent that it really shouldn't have, and the judge wound up saying some things she shouldn't have said, and JQC took some action on it sometime later. It really didn't have anything to do with me. I was just there, really as a spectator, even though I was an attorney that represented the defendant. But that was something. I don't know how much experience I've had when I've had that case. Let's say 17, 18 years. I had never really seen that. And all due respect to her, I think what it was, that was her first death penalty trial, and I think everybody was just born slap out. But it went too far with some of the things she said. So that's something. Although it's a bad and negative thing, I think it's something I can learn from.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good to see you again. You've been asked a lot of questions about how you would get up to speed with different areas of the law that you're not as familiar with. And you've mentioned that you have mentors that you could reach out to, and you have their cell phone numbers. And we've talked about qualities or situations and courtrooms that you've liked, that you would try to emulate. So who are your judicial role models?
Judge Lisa Davidson. You know, I didn't put Judge Maxwell's name down this time around. I did last time, but I had the feeling last time that he harassed the heck out of you guys. So I didn't put his name down for that very reason. He's older, but Judge Maxwell married my wife and me, and I'm very close with him. You know, so I could lean into him to the extent that I wouldn't want to interfere with his retirement. You know, Judge Crawford and I, we don't really, it would be inappropriate for us to really chatter too much on text, you know, because he's the actual judge I practice in front of. But if I did not actually practice in front of him, I think that my relationship with him, as far as outside relationship, would be strong. Judge Steve Henderson, you know, he was my buddy when he worked at the public defender's office. Matter of fact, when I came here in 2004, he was a felony attorney. And I really, when I came to the PD's office, I didn't know really much at all about criminal law. And I learned from him. He was a huge mentor as a lawyer when I first came here. You know, you kind of, with the PD's office, is kind of sink or swim. And he was my go-to guy. And he, you know, he would be, you know, hopefully, you know, a good buddy and a good person to go to.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Delgado.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I wasn't charged with vetting you, but in my vetting process, your name did come up.
Yes, ma'am.
And I wanted to relay to you that many people had very nice things to say about you.
Thank you, Ms. Delgado. Good to meet you too as well.
It's good to meet you. And so through this process, you've been asked some tough questions, and I think that's what really makes this process real and worthwhile, right? And so one of the questions that I do have, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it, is in your application, questions 52 through 54 talk about the criminal and miscellaneous actions. And in going through some background and some documents, I found from a 2003 time frame in Duval County a charge related to a worthless check. Does that sound familiar to you at all? It had some verifying information, but I wanted to give you an opportunity if that's something that...
A worthless check against me?
Yeah, it from May 6th of 2003 in Duval County.
May 6th of 2003?
Yeah.
So,
Were you in Duval County then?
well, that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to think about. First of all, I don't know anything about that, but you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it isn't me, but I don't know anything about it. But when I left, and this should be in my application, I don't want to leave any gaps there, but when I left Duval County, it would have been early on in 2003, if not 2002. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't there in 2003, but what had happened, not to get personal, my brother had gotten sick, and I needed to go back home. And it was all a sort of sudden type thing. I was in private practice with an individual named Dale Carson for just a short period of time. You know, I'd had some experience with a healthcare firm there. But when I left, I wouldn't say I just packed up my stuff and left, because I had people there to carry on with my clients and so forth and so on. But I did leave somewhat abruptly. I don't think I disregarded anything with regard to my finances or anything else. Not to any great deficiency anyway. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
I'm really not.
Fair enough.
Yes, ma'am.
My follow-up question to that would just be, is there anything on your application, or that was not in your application, that you feel that we as a commission should know about, or should, you know?
Sure. I wasn't clear on the question with, this is a financial responsibility question, but it dealt with, have you ever been sued? And I had, it's not a worthless check, certainly not that, but I had a credit card that I was paying off. It was late 2020, something like that, and I missed, I did one of these things where I didn't pay off, I got behind on the credit card went into collections, okay? It was about a $2,000 or $3,000 debt. I should have never let it go into collections, but it went into collections. Once it went into collections, I immediately set up a financial arrangement with the collection agency, you know, you negotiate it down, and I did that. Well, I missed a note on, or one of the payments on from the collection agency, and they came on top of me really quick, and they served me papers. Now, I never went to court or anything on that. I actually contacted the law firm that was on the paperwork that they served me, and I immediately paid it off. It was around $2,000 or $3,000. You know, when I put that on there, or when I did put that on there, that was something that I kind of was troubled by, because I didn't know if that was considered a lawsuit or not, because I never went to court. But I would bring that up, and it may not be anything y'all knew about, but I just, you know, want to be honest.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Edwards, not circulating the writing samples was my fault. So I want to take responsibility for that. I have circulated them now. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your writing samples. The first one that you submitted was a motion for a new trial on State of Florida versus Taisha Willis. Can you talk about that case?
Sure, absolutely. So, Ms. Willis was one of my clients that I had when I was in private practice. She was a school bus driver here in Brevard County, absolutely zero criminal history. A woman of the utmost faith, her and her husband both, just very Christian, for lack of a better word. And what had happened, as am I, okay, but what had happened is she had taken in 3 adopted children. She had three biological, she had taken in 3 adopted children. 2 of those, one of those biological children and one of those adopted children, she had disciplined with a belt, okay? I forgot what it was that the children had done, but she spanked them with the belt. There was an older child that was about 11 or 12 at the time of the spanking. There was a younger child that was more like 8. The spanking with the belt left marks. When she spanked them, it was on their buttocks and high hip area. When the children went to school, DCF got involved because marks could be seen up at the bottom of one of the children's skirts, or what happened, whatever. So DCF got involved. I familiarized myself to the best of my ability with what corporal punishment was. As you're probably aware, I know you're probably aware that in Scott and Mr. Dowdy and others, that, you know, you're allowed to spank your children in Florida, and you're allowed to spank your children and leave marks to some extent. The intent, though, it's a little vague as to what the intent is. The photos were bad, okay, in particular with the younger child, that they were kind of bad. And there was some evidence that had come in, pool mark evidence, by an expert of the state attorney's office that suggested that some of the markings on the children were the result of a belt buckle. We disagreed with that testimony, and we in fact hired our own expert. But at the same time as the state's expert was, or the state was soliciting from their expert these tool mark evidence, they were also asking from their expert to opine or give the opinion that this was in fact child abuse. And the way they did that is their expert is essentially the head of pediatrics at Brevard here in Brevard County, which is a huge, if you're not familiar with it, huge pediatric doctor's office. So this lady also works there full time. She's the head of it, and she has, you know, exemplary resources, or exemplary credentials. But she came in at trial, and she, upon the state's questioning, she said this is child abuse. In other words, the state asked Miss So-and-so, in your opinion, you know, what type of case was this, or what did you diagnose the children with? And she says, well, in my report, I diagnosed child abuse. Well, you know, I threw a fit. And, you know, I got in front of the judge, and I said, you know, Judge, this is matters outside the province of the jury. You know, she provided an opinion that only the jury can provide. If she wants to give opinions as to what happened with the children, that's fine, but she can't come in and per se say this is child abuse, because that's what my client was charged with, was child abuse, child neglect, to be specific. The evidence was allowed to come in, and I filed the motion for new trial, and Mr. Joe DeShield, we hired him for appellate counsel, and I actually went to the Fifth with him and argued the case. But I had a great deal of passion for that case. I try not to let myself become personally involved. It was a very interesting case as a lawyer, but it was also an interesting case for me because I was very passionate about it. She was found guilty on count 1, and she was found guilty of a lesser included on count 2. Fortunately, she just received probation, and she wasn't actually, she got a withhold, which kept her from being a convicted felon. But I disagreed with that testimony, and that's what I was going at.
Understood. And just so that you know, everybody does have the writing samples, and we'll be able to consider them today. So thank you for submitting those.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Big.
And thank you also for the effort that it took to apply, and we appreciate your persistence. So thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. We're going to take a